Welcome to the IREL podcast. Are you sick and tired of real estate gurus pitching their next free construction deal, only to find out years later they were completely wrong? Worried the next overseas conference you spend thousands to attend will only be used to sell overpriced lots in deserted developments? Join thousands of other international real estate seekers who are looking for their place in paradise without the sales pitch. Straight from your host, Taylor White.
Hey, real estate seeker. Welcome to the Overseas Property Insider Podcast. I'm your host, Taylor White. I am proud to say this episode is brought to your earbuds, courtesy of my friends at Dropbox. Dropbox is a home for all of your photos, documents, videos, and files. Anything you add to Dropbox will automatically show up on your computer, phone, and even the Dropbox website, so you can get access to your stuff from anywhere. The best part, you can get started completely free. Head on over to irelpodcast.com/Dropbox for more details. We hear from another extremely intelligent overseas living insider when I sit down and speak with Kaamna Bhojwani-Dhawan, who runs the successful website mamaboard.com and is coming to your earbuds from London, England. We hear about one of the biggest surprises that has caught her off guard, an absolute favorite thing, and the biggest pet peeve about living overseas. Instead of telling you more, let's join Kaamna from London. What's going on, Kaamna? It's Taylor White. I'm excited to have you on the podcast straight from London, England, so we can get to know you personally. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Absolutely. Hi, Taylor. Happy to be here. My name is Kaamna Bhojwani-Dhawan. I am the founder of mamaboard.com, a website for families that love to travel all over the world. I'm doing Mamaboard simply because it's very much in keeping with our lifestyle. I have two children, a almost 3-year-old going on 13, and an almost, 5-year-old going on 15. And we love to travel. So we're based in San Francisco, but we have the opportunity to do international assignments because of my husband's work. And this is the second one we've taken. So we moved from San Francisco to London just a few months ago, but we're getting settled and really loving it, actually.
And Kaamna, I love your guys' tagline at mamaboard.com, which is globe-trotting babies and their parents. What's the motivation for that?
Well, often I think with travel, and rightly so, it's the parents that have the apprehensions more than the kids. So I think that if parents just chill out and let the kids lead the way, it's not that daunting at all, particularly travel to other countries. You'll see it's the mums putting on the sunscreen and the hats and, don't eat this, don't touch this. And sure, they're all valid to some degree. But sometimes if you just take a step back and enjoy it, let the kids lead the way, because that's their natural instinct.
And then I'd love to hear a little bit more about your website, mamaboard.com, and kind of the services that you offer or the things that your guys are doing.
Sure, absolutely. So Mamaboard was basically founded out of a need, which was my own personal need. My husband and I moved to Australia when I was pregnant with my first son, my first child. And when he was born, I wanted to travel again because it's something that my husband and I love to do together. So I was tagging on to his business trips to China and to Japan and to New Zealand. But really I couldn't find any information online for parents that wanted to go to places outside of McDonald's and Club Med. So it's like you have to die and have no inspiration after you have children. Right. So that's the kind of stuff that I started writing. So it was also balanced out with things like, all right, what does a supermarket look like in Japan if you don't speak Japanese? And, where can you buy diapers in Morocco, which is where I just got back from last week. So it's taken about 4 years, and Mamaboard has basically evolved into a repository of international city guides for people with children, more or less 5 and under, although I am finding myself writing for slightly older audiences as my children grow up. In addition to that, I also write heaps and heaps of general travel tips. So everything from airlines, how to get a good deal, great new travel tips, first-time parents, how not to freak out on your flight with your kids, to, why you should travel on trains, why you should travel with kids while they're young, the whole gamut. In addition to product reviews, and sometimes deals and discounts if I really just can't keep it in.
So, Kaamna, you are going to a lot of really amazing places. What are some of the reasons why you and your family travel so much?
Well, to begin with, we're all international. I grew up in India. I spent the first 18 years of my life in India. I moved to the US to do college and grad school. My family still lives in India. My sister lives in Singapore. My husband was raised in Saudi Arabia. So we're just for us to go and see our family, we're crossing 3 continents. In addition to that, we both, as I said, my husband and I both love to travel. So it was something that we really wanted to instill in our children. And just from a more macro and a more humanitarian perspective, I really believe that getting kids out to see different cultures early on just helps them build a true appreciation for diversity. Not in the PC kind of superficial way that we've come to look at it so recently, but in a really I can go to a new country and I can taste their food and I can learn about their arts and their norms, and I can truly appreciate the differences between us.
And the comment, just because you brought it up, and I would love to ask, I travel quite a bit as well, and I see it on your website. What are some of your best and worst airline recommendations for people with families?
Oh, you're going to get me into trouble here.
That's okay. This is what the podcast is all about. It's about sharing.
It's about the hot seat. I have to say that the worst travel experience I've had was with Air China. That was a few years ago. It was and it was both coming and going. So it was really not just a single experience, but it was a combination of bad management that had us stranded on the tarmac for about 10 hours. It was small things like not having milk on the plane, just things like that. It was just, I could not get off that plane fast enough. I'm also sad to say that typically US carriers, I'm not very happy to fly. I don't think that they're customer friendly, let alone family friendly.
Let's be honest, U.S. airlines, if you've traveled outside the U.S., are not very good, period. They're just not good.
No, I agree. Even if you're traveling premier classes, which we've flown United, we've flown American Airlines in the premier classes, and it's been very hit or miss. I will say we did have one fantastic experience on United Airlines. It was about a year ago, we were flying, my husband and I and the kids were flying from San Francisco to Puerto Vallarta. So a simple, 3-hour flight. And unfortunately, we all got upgraded because my husband has status with Star Alliance, but a couple sitting next to us were not very happy that the children had been upgraded and were very, very antagonistic to the point where they started using the F word on my husband in the middle of the flight. And, so
wow.
It was pretty, I wrote a long thing about it on Mama, but obviously catch me being quiet about something like that. And, I have to say that the United steward was very fair, and he did a great job of keeping them in control and apologizing to us and just sort of making sure that we felt absolutely comfortable, even though there was not much he could do. We were midair.
So then besides worst airlines, what are some of the good ones?
So typically East Asian airlines are fantastic. So Singapore Airlines is fantastic. Cathay is very good. Middle Eastern Airlines, I've never actually flown Etihad, but I've heard great things about Etihad. Emirates is fantastic. So those would be my sort of top 3 in terms of they going above and beyond. Here, I mean, we look at basic stuff like, do they have a children's meal? And, we get excited if they hand out coloring books at the beginning. But these airlines they have things like they have push cars at the airports. Sometimes they have family help who will come and just sort of escort you through the airport if you've got too many kids and your bags and things like that, or if you're a parent traveling alone with kids. So it's really about anticipating the needs of your families and making you feel welcome.
And then, Kaamna, I couldn't wait to talk to you because I know that you're an expert in traveling with family. What are some of the biggest challenges to travel or else living overseas with kids?
So it's always this like I said, this is our second move with the kids, or actually our third if you count moving back to San Francisco when we lived in Sydney. And you always wonder, especially as kids get older, how their transition is going to be. Are they going to make new friends? They love the school that they're in. Are they going to be able to keep up academically? Things like that. So that's always, if you have kids of school going age, that's always the first one, is making sure that your kids are okay. The second one is obviously what sort of infrastructure are you going to be faced with? Things like doctors and medical facilities, emergency facilities, things that you'll actually need when you're a family. And, fortunately for us, we've always lived in developed and very sophisticated countries. So things like that have been fantastic. Like I said, I moved to Sydney when I was pregnant. So it was a leap of faith. And the service was fantastic when I was having my baby there.
So I know now that you are in London, England, a fantastic location.
Yep.
What are some of the reasons why you guys are in London?
So the opportunity came up because of my husband's job, and we leapt at it. Because compared to San Francisco, London is much more central. As I mentioned earlier, we have family all over the world, and not many people make it out to California unless you're a tech geek, to be honest.
Right.
or you're a Hollywood superstar, and then you just go to LA. But London is closer to India, which is where we have a lot of family, and it's closer to the rest of the world. So, and for travel aficionados like us, we're on a plane a couple of times a month, taking the kids somewhere for the weekend or just on a train, something like that.
Wow, how awesome is that? That's so fun.
It's a lot of fun.
So you arrive in London. You're from San Francisco this last time. You arrive in London. What's the biggest surprise that caught you guys off guard?
Again, coming from California, particularly from Northern California, where you think between all our websites and our technology that we're it, I was amazed at how advanced customer service vis-a-vis technology is here in London. For instance, everybody uses a service called Ocado to have their groceries delivered. You have the app, you have the Ocado app. A lot of deliveries and things like that happen via text message. I don't find it as efficient in the States, not even in California, where we've automated so many things.
That's actually kind of surprising coming from California, going to a place like London, that it's so much further advanced than California.
Yeah, it definitely, I'm thrilled to have it. It definitely caught me by surprise.
Okay, so then what's your absolute favorite thing about living in London so far for the last few months?
Oh, I love London, I have to say.
I can tell already you love London.
It's such a truly cosmopolitan city. You've got people from all over the world. You've got the most amazing theater and art and music, but it's also just so steeped in history. Every corner tells a story. The building I'm staring at right now was built in 1896.
Wow.
And it's just, it's refreshing to come from a country like the US, which is a little bit newer.
Okay, Kaamna, it can't all be fun and games. I would love to hear, so far, what's your biggest pet peeve? What's the one thing that you're like, so far about London?
Well, you'll hear it over and over again. The weather sucks.
I hear the weather is pretty bad. I haven't been to London myself, but I've had many friends traveling that have come from England, and they say the weather is very tough to get used to.
Yeah, here's the thing is that you have to get used to it. You have to just, brave the gray and put on your wellies, as they call them here, and pick up your umbrella and just get on with your life, because there's so much to see outside. We moved here in December, which was a smart move in retrospect, because by the time we got set up, it's spring and, the days are longer and it's much nicer. But the first month, taking my kids to a new school, pushing a stroller when it was raining and cold, yeah, not so great.
So I've heard a lot of great things about some of the public transportation coming from San Francisco, where it's actually pretty good compared to some other spots in the States. Can you talk a little bit more about the public transportation in London?
Yeah, so it's actually interesting. I just wrote an article on everything you need to know about London public transportation and kids, because one of the things that was not so obvious to me until I had a child was the London Tube is extremely difficult to travel on when you have a child in a stroller. There are no escalators or there are no elevators. There are a few, but for the most part, you're dealing with a lot of stairs and the willingness of fellow commuters to help you up and down them.
And of course, you said too, but that's subway, correct?
Yes, exactly. That's the subway, right? The underground system in London, yeah. But other than that, the buses are great. Traffic in London is actually pretty bad. It's pretty congested in the central part. So you'll find that people don't drive very much, and it is a lot of public transportation use.
And then what do you guys do as far as healthcare is concerned?
So we have, because we're sort of expats from the US, we do have access to private facilities, but the national health system here, everybody's encouraged to register, and you can use those facilities as well. If there's an emergency, for instance, with the kids and things like that. So far, so good. We're going to the dentist next week, and I can let you know how that went.
Next week, you guys are going to the dentist for the first time. How scary.
That's right. Well, I'm scary for my 3-year-old, because she's going to be the first one on the chair.
Well, one of the great things too from coming from the States, which speaks English predominantly, and going to England is it's English. So you don't have to do anything as far as learning a foreign language.
Yeah, and that's it's less of a concern for us because my family is, I think the person who speaks the fewest languages is my husband, and he speaks two. My kids speak three languages. I speak three or three and a half. So we're less concerned about learning a new language, but I would be concerned about coming to a country where, the facilities were not as good as the ones we're used to.
I know there's a lot of great public facilities as far as parks and museums and those kinds of things. Can you speak a little bit more about your favorites?
Absolutely. And I will say another surprising thing about London is that I think that as big cities in the world go, this is probably one of the most child friendly. And not in terms of, every restaurant has a high chair, but in terms of there's so much for children to do and for them to learn. Just the royal parks here, where you go to Hyde Park or you go to Kensington Gardens and the Diana, what's it called? It's the Diana Memorial, Princess of Wales Memorial Playground. You walk in and you're faced with a gigantic pirate ship. And kids just go crazy. How many playgrounds in the world, free playgrounds, just have this beautiful, magnificent pirate ship?
How fun.
It's great. It's great. And every little corner of those playgrounds are something above and beyond your regular, swings and slides and things like that. So kids are really well taken care of. Some of the most beautiful museums here, like the Natural History Museum, the Victoria and Albert, they're all free. So literally, I could take my son there every single day, and they're huge and they're beautifully maintained. And kids just go crazy. So when it is dull and gray, like it is often, you just take them to go look at the dinosaur exhibit and they're happy.
Okay, so it's not all fun and games with the kids. I know they have to go to school sometimes. What do you do as far as schooling's concerned?
So schools, like any major city in the world, schools are tough. And any responsible parent wants to make sure that their kids are in the best school they can possibly put them in the best neighborhood and things like that. Again, because London is so central, we had a lot of friends who either live here or had, we were able to poll them. They had been back and forth between the States and London. And we found a school that suited our needs and that it was an international school so that it would help the transition. Because, to be quite honest, British kids at the age of 5, which is what my son is, are actually ahead academically than American kids. But we didn't want our son coming into a situation where he was, backwards academically as well as, in a new situation, in a new environment. So we chose an international school, which is a little bit more gradual and has kids coming in from different systems all over the world. So there are options if you live in a big city.
So one thing that comes to my mind when I think of London is the cost of living. Can you speak a little bit more about what you think the cost of living is like for you in London now versus coming from a place like San Francisco?
Yeah, well, they're both really expensive cities. So we didn't die of sticker shock, but we don't exactly love the prices here. Real estate is extremely expensive. Real estate is definitely expensive, and we're lucky. My husband's company helps us with some of that. It's comparable to San Francisco, but again, the quality of the stuff that you get is what you're paying for. Similarly, like in San Francisco, you get the best food in the world, you get the best produce and things like that. Similarly, in London, you pay top dollar for your organic apple, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then, you go down from there depending on what you can afford. The interesting thing about London that, again, I didn't realize is that personal services are quite cheap because there's a lot of labor here between the EU. There's a lot of Eastern European labor. So, you can get a cleaning lady at I think the going rate is something like 10 pounds an hour, which is about $16, or a babysitter. Forget the cleaning lady because the babysitters are more, it's an easier transition. Yeah, you pay $10 an hour for a good babysitter, whereas in the States, you're paying at least 20, 22 in the big cities. So some of the services are actually cheaper in London. But overall, yeah, both expensive cities.
What do you think are the few things that you got a big sticker shock on? Like, was it rent? Was it food? Was it transportation? What are the few things that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's either this cheap or this expensive versus San Francisco?
Rent. Yeah, and San Francisco is expensive as well. So for us to be shocked about the rent is saying quite a bit. But yeah, housing in London is very expensive, and it makes sense, right? Everybody wants to live in the city. It's driven up by, again, things like schools. In terms of going the other way, like I said, yeah, the services. I was pleased to find that there are lots of services at much more reasonable rates than in the US. Labor.
So, Kaamna, I am a big fan of food. I would love to hear some of your favorite local foods to eat in London.
So you know that the national food of the UK of London is Indian food. It's curry.
Really?
Which is hysterical.
So you love it?
Oh, I love it. Yeah. But there's a lot, but in general, London is, because it's such a cosmopolitan city, they take their food very, very seriously. And there's a lot of really cutting edge restaurants doing everything from fusion foods to doing really, really good versions of any particular food. Obviously, fish and chips are your basic British food, and that's their big contribution, their big culinary contribution to the world. But actually, the best Indian food outside of India is here in London, as well as you have fantastic Thai food, fantastic tapas, great Italian food, because obviously it's just the proximity to the continent means that you get some of the best chefs here as well. So you won't starve in London, let me put it that way.
So, Kaamna, we are just about time. Do you have any final tips or pointers that you wanted to share with families either moving to London or just traveling wise?
Do it. It's not that bad. I would tell, I have friends that have babies who are like, oh, I'll travel when they're 10. No, do it when they're young. It's actually a little bit easier. Children are much more malleable when they're younger. And, chances are you probably have more energy as well. Our kids travel all over the world, and I think they're much better off for it.
And then, Kaamna, what are the best ways to follow you as you move around the world?
Yeah, absolutely. So the website is momaboard.com. Our Facebook page is Facebook/momaboard. I'm on Twitter at momaboard as well. And lately I've been having a lot of fun on Pinterest. So you can find me again at pinterest.com/momaboard. And I have some really fun visual guides about places we've been to and things that we do.
Awesome, Kaamna. Thank you so much for joining me today from London, England.
Thank you, Taylor. It was fun.
I want to thank Kaamna once again for giving us her amazing take on overseas living, conducting business, and teaching others to do the same with a family in tow. You can head on over to our site for complete show notes, easy ways to follow Kaamna around the world, and more information about momaboard.com. And don't forget, Dropbox is a home for all of your photos, documents, videos, and files. Anything you add to Dropbox will automatically show up on your computer, phone, and even the Dropbox website, so you can access your stuff from anywhere. The best part, you can get started completely free. Head on over to irelpodcast.com/Dropbox for more details.
You have been listening to the IREL Podcast with Taylor White. Be sure to hit up irelpodcast.com for more. That's irelpodcast.com. Thanks for listening.